All right, welcome to another edition of the Hardwood Huddle. I am your host live from the swamps of New Jersey, minutes from New York City. My name is Randy Zellea from backsportspage.com. As always, from the heartland of America, Dallas, Texas, he is the supreme leader. He is our Jedi Knight. He is Bill Ingram. And our special guest today, NBA champion. He's a golfer. He's a philanthropist. He is everything to us. He is Shane Battier, and he's also Duke's finest. I can't leave that out either. So, Shane, good morning. Thanks for giving us some time. I really appreciate it, brother. How are you?
It's great to see you. Hey, great to see you. All things considered, could be worse, could be better, but hey, we're here. Glad I'm here.
Well, listen, we appreciate you giving some time. And it's funny when right before we went on, you said, all right, what are we talking about today? My thing was just like, dude, well, let's just talk about anything and everything. And I know Bill, Bill has covered your career a lot of it, especially when you were down in Houston and, with Memphis, our own Tracy Graven covered you as well. I got to ask a question though, is for you, I'm going to start from now and work a little backwards. What was it like for you to step away from the game and make the transitions to broadcasting and making the focus on outside basketball projects? How has that been for you? How difficult was it to say sort of like goodbye to the game, the playing aspect of it?
You know what? I had a false sense of what transition was all about. And I'm a guy who my entire life I said, you know what? I know what I want. I'm going to go get it. And I was so lucky that it worked out that way. And when I retired, I didn't retire because I didn't love the game anymore. I still love the game. I just wanted to do something else. My body hurt. I wanted to spend time with my family. Just wanted to pursue other things. And I thought I had everything handled, and I didn't. And in this world, professional athletics, you feel you're a self-made man. And I felt I was able to do everything on my own. I had great teammates and great coaches, obviously, but at the end of the day, it was my time being put in. And, you become addicted to the scoreboard, the chase. And I knew exactly where I stood every single night. I looked at the scoreboard. Did we win? Did we lose? How many points did I have? Did my man score a bunch of points? I knew exactly where I stood at all points. And I really struggled without that scoreboard every single night. And that's why broadcasting was really tough for me. There was no scoreboard for me. There was no intrinsic improvement aside from Twitter, and people let me know that I wasn't very good, which is, I appreciate that. But I knew pretty quick into the job that this wasn't going to fill the void that basketball left. And in many regards, I'm still trying to fill that void, that competition, that purpose. But it's been fun to use my brain in different ways, and have new goals.
So what would you say to, knowing now what you failed to do in your transition, what would you say to a player who is on the verge of making that transition?
Yeah, well, I tell people the biggest mistake I ever had was I watched way too much Netflix and played too many video games when I was on the road, when I should have been getting my master's. I should have been getting my master's degree. I should have been, who knows, a doctorate degree. There's so much downtime as a professional athlete. And obviously, you use up so much physical energy. But I would have utilized my network much more and really started to plan out a plan post basketball. But even then, you don't know what retirement's about until you don't have a basketball dribble anymore, and it's scary. It's scary, and but the toughest part about that is you're loath to ask for help. And so I suffered from I'm sure a little bit of depression and anxiety when I didn't have basketball anymore, and I didn't want to jump back into that world. But it took me a lot of work and soul searching and working with coaches and to develop my relationships and know that, look, no one makes it in this world without a little bit of help, and it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to make yourself vulnerable. Sorry, I didn't mean to be Debbie Downer here.
No, not at all. No, I wanted to give Bill the opportunity to jump back in.
Well, I try not to overcut Randy, so when I hear him go, I try to let him.
It's all good. We're happy. We're all good.
And Shane, I know we contacted you through with the Heat and everything, and you had such a good relationship with them, and I know you're broadcasting right after your career. we'll talk about your relationship right now with the current crop of NBA players and what your thought of the game right now is. What is your general feeling of the way the gameplay is?
I love the game. I think there's so many really skilled players. I don't think we've ever lived in a time where there's more skilled players or more athletic players. When I was a kid, I used to go to the library and check out books and read the drills that like Larry Bird and Michael Jordan did and just try to copy them. There's so much information now for a young kid on YouTube and whatnot to become better. And so you have an amazingly skilled group of players. Unfortunately, I think because of the summer basketball scene, I don't know if players are taught the game as well. And they play a ton of games. A kid may play 60 games in a summer, which is ludicrous, 3 to 4 games a day. But the nuances of the game are not being taught like they used to be. So that's one thing I lament. But in terms of the physical skill, the athleticism, all-time high.
So that's an interesting point, because we tend to focus more on the Olajuwon era, selfishly, because I grew up, as you know, in Houston, watching Olajuwon. Olajuwon is the reason I know what the NBA is. And those guys, we had Rolando Blackman on last show, and he said those guys all say the same thing about the modern NBA. It's soft, because they played in an era where defense was, and you see it in the Last Dance, Michael Jordan show. You just didn't drive the lane. You were going to get pummeled. Defense was so much, they've changed the rules and they've enhanced the gameplay to the point that scoring is much more prevalent, and which is fine. But to hear you say that, it's just interesting. The next generation of players that retired see it, and you're right. The talent. My God, the stuff some of these guys can do is unbelievable. Watching people like LeBron and big guys doing stuff that only Akeem used to do, when I was a kid watching. It's interesting, but that perspective is the shift between their generation and then your generation, kind of the 2000s and on, of the defense first. Everything was, you shed blood to score, to the modern game where it's much more offensive. Though I got to tell you, the videos of you defending Kobe are instructive for modern day. He scored a lot anyway, but just talk about that aspect right there. You built your career on defense as much as anything, and were one of the greats in that category. But talk about, in a league that was so built around offense, still having that defense and guarding Kobe.
Yeah, well, look, I grew up in Detroit, Bad Boys era. So, watching the Last Dance, I know it was tough for folks in Houston. They had their opinion who would have won between those teams. But I didn't like the Bulls because I was a Pistons guy. I learned basketball from Rick Mahorn, Bill Laimbeer, Joe Dumars. So defense is what you did if you're from Detroit. But I realized, look, if there's a tremendous value if you're one of the top defenders. You're going to play. And so it was a function of, I want to play. So I'm going to do what it takes to learn about what defense is all about. And it really is just about effort and awareness. That's all it is. I was not blessed with amazing quickness or jumping ability or strength. But the one thing I could do, I could think every play, and I always knew what situation was going on. And I had a short memory. And guarding a guy like Kobe Bryant, you have to have a short memory. And I was so lucky to play against so many great offensive players in my time, and see if I could try to slow them down. I didn't stop too many guys, but I consider myself the human yellow light. All right, if I got them to slow down a little bit, that was a win. But when I got to Houston, I learned a ton from Jeff Van Gundy in 1 year about just philosophically how defense should be played, and then teaming up with my man Daryl Morey and Sam Hinkie. They taught me the way of data and how to leverage data to get every little advantage when trying to guard some of the best players in the world. And did it always work? No, but it gave me a shot to stay on the court and at least not embarrass myself too much.
Well, Ro Blackman told us that, guarding Michael Jordan, you had all this stuff on the whiteboard. Coaches drew up all this stuff, but once the game started, that was all meaningless. Yeah. The only thing you could do was hope to attack him and hope to get him in foul trouble. It was the only way to even marginally.
Ro could do that. Ro could, could fill it up. I didn't have that luxury. All right, I got my 3 or 4 shots a game, so I had to figure it out. And the way I approached defense was, and this really came from the Rockets, was I played defense. I played basketball like I played blackjack. Okay, and
that's a great analogy.
It really is.
When
you're sitting at the table and you get dealt pocket aces, what do? You split those, right? Why? Because there has been a book written about the probabilistic winning percentage of splitting aces. And does that work every single time? No. But does that give you the best chance to maximize your profit in that single hand? Absolutely. And so, when guarding these really tough guys, look, when you guard Kobe and Ginobili and Paul Pierce and these great players I had to guard.
Dwayne Wade.
Yeah. There's no right or wrong answer, but there's a more right answer and a less right answer. And the more you can do the less right answer for that player, you're not going to win every time, but at least gives you a probabilistic chance to survive. And over time, those numbers, they bear out.
And it's funny too. I think you're probably happier that you didn't have to guard Dwayne Wade and have him as a teammate, especially through your time in Miami. And that's a little transition into your time with Miami. Can you talk about how special and also how difficult it was to play with a team that had LeBron James and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, not because from a basketball standpoint, but from all the outside noise, a lot of criticism towards LeBron at that time to make a decision to go to Miami from Cleveland. And you were there on that team winning a championship. Can you talk about the pressures, not only on the court, but off the court with your time in Miami?
Well, look, it might have been difficult for some guys, but you figured I went to Duke. And,
oh yeah.
Every one of our game, trust me, and I tell people we face a lot more hate at Duke than we ever did in Miami. All right, and so look, you want to play on a team that has a chance to do something special, and that's what the Miami Heat was. And first of all, tremendous teammates. If there was pressure, we made the most of it, and we all signed up for that. We all signed up. We all knew exactly what we were doing when we signed up for Miami, and it really was championship or bust. But that's, as a competitor, is there any better stakes? And but we had a lot of fun. And we understood, when it was time to play, we played our tails off. When it was time to be in the locker room and bust each other's chops, we busted each other's chops. We had Hall of Famers up and down the bus. But, you were just one of the guys. And so it was just a really special couple of years of my life. And the basketball was at such a high level that it was pretty amazing.
Did you guys know
I still have a Rockets question, and Randy transitioned right over to that Eastern Conference, and I went, wait a minute.
No, go for it. I'll be over here.
You're next. Come on. The team, the Jeff Van Gundy, Rick Adelman Rockets, to me, I thought if it wasn't for injuries, that team had a chance to be really special. There were some amazing talent. I mean, and Yao Ming, for one, if he could have just stayed healthy. That team, I thought, of all beyond the 2 championship teams for Houston, which were obviously just incredible, I thought if everybody had stayed healthy, that team had a chance to be what you're talking about, that special team with Miami where a championship could have been a legitimate expectation with health.
Absolutely. And, I lament that for the fans of Houston. I lament that for Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady, who will forever be unfairly labeled as guys who couldn't advance their teams. And the fact of the matter is we just weren't healthy enough. And that's that. We had the talent, we had the coaching, we had great role players. People forget how tough that Western Conference was. I mean, it was an absolute buzzsaw for about 10 years. I remember playing in Memphis. We won 50 games. We were the 8th seed.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy that
you
year,
know, the
man.
Utah teams and the Lakers team. I mean, just up and down the Western Conference, it was tough. But you know, it would have been super fun to be fully healthy and really make a run at it and say, you know what, we gave it our all. We don't have any excuses, and let's see where we are. And you know, that's only something we can play in video games now and on 2K. But it's probably one of my largest professional regrets in my basketball career that we couldn't make a real run.
I do turn those injuries off on 2K, by the way, because I like to have Yao Ming play. But the other thing I'll say is
that would have been helpful.
The night that you were traded to Memphis, I happened to be in Houston, and I knew Rick Adelman real well from Sacramento and Portland, all his career. And he told me point blank that night that he was done because and I don't want to badmouth the player, so I won't say his name, but he said, you just traded my best, hardest working player for someone who doesn't want to play. And I'm supposed to coach that. So that's where you ranked in Rick Adelman's book.
Well, I love playing for Rick. Yeah, he was an amazing coach, and he had an amazing skill of giving his team ownership. I never played for a team where we felt we owned it more than the teams that Rick coached, and that was a special gift. And you know, Hall of Fame coach, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And you know, we all really loved playing for him. So we felt bad we couldn't give him a playoff run too, because he deserved it. He's such that good of a coach.
You know, it's funny you're talking with coaches too, and I have to bring this up because it's a name of someone who doesn't get enough credit. And when you were early in your career, you were able to play for Hubie Brown over down in Memphis, and he's a guy who I that Memphis team that you just said before that won 50 games. Jerry West was able to help put that team together. Can you talk about that team and also playing for someone like Hubie Brown, who again just doesn't get the love for the job that he did with that squad down in Memphis?
Yeah, well, people don't realize when I got drafted by the Grizzlies, I just come from Duke. All right, in 4 years, my record at Duke was 133-15. Which is, you know,
that's crazy.
I don't know how it is now because teams play like 80 games a year, but at the time it was the winningest 4-year period in terms of pure wins. So literally it was the greatest 4-year period ever for college basketball team. I went to the Memphis Grizzlies, and in 2001 they had the lowest winning percentage of the 4 North American sports. In terms of their entire history, baseball, basketball, football, hockey. So literally, I go from the penthouse to the outhouse, the worst franchise in sports. So you can understand the culture shock, and we had a bunch of young players. I got drafted with Pau Gasol, and we had Jason Williams, White Chocolate, and Stromae Swift, and a bunch of young guys, and a couple of veterans on their way out, and we just weren't very good. And the culture was poor, and it started with the hire of Jerry West, and he came in and he sort of cleared house of the guys who didn't want to be there. Then he hired Hubie my second year, and Hubie was unbelievable in terms of a true culture change, and he got us to believe and to believe that we could be a playoff team. And people were like, Memphis Grizzlies playoffs, like, you got to be kidding me. And he laid out the plan exactly how it was going to be. He said, look, we had training camp 2-a-days in the season because he got hired 10 games into the season in my second year. So we had 2-a-days while we had to play games. He's like, look, we're going to be terrible until the All-Star break. But after the All-Star break, look out. And the next year we're making the playoffs. And everyone's like, all right. And sure enough, after the All-Star break, I think we had the 3rd or 4th best record in the league. Missed the playoffs, won 35 games or something. And then next year we won 50 games. And I'll never forget that the first playoff game in the Memphis Pyramid. We played the San Antonio Spurs, won the championship that year. And Hubie wins Coach of the Year, and he's blowing kisses to the crowd. And it was like one of the most pure moments of my entire basketball career. And unfortunately, we got swept by the Spurs, and we got swept. Actually, 3 years we made the playoffs. We played the Suns, the Spurs, and the Mavs. 2 of the 3 were NBA champions. But that doesn't diminish what Hubie meant to Memphis and meant to the turnaround of the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
What do you think of the concept? You played 4 years of college. That makes you a specimen in the modern NBA because that doesn't happen anymore. But Larry Brown said to us when we were talking about this that people don't want to draft a player who's played 4 years because they don't have as much potential. But yeah, right, they don't have as much potential because they have become, to a large extent, who they're going to be. You know what you're drafting. But he said the solution to this would be a draft and stash like we do with European, foreign players, where you draft them but they stay. And he said college should do the same thing. What do you think? I talked to a couple general managers who hate that idea, but they didn't really get into specifics of why. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are of somebody who could play for Duke but already be drafted by the NBA.
It's hard to compare eras. Like when I came out in 2001, I played 4 years because I wasn't good enough to come out early. If I was good enough, I might have come out earlier, but I wouldn't trade my senior year for anything in the world. And the fact of the matter is, kids are just more developed than I was at 16. At 16, not only do they have the body of a 21-year-old, they got the marketing plan to match. And so the mindset is different. The physical training is different. The talent is different. And so it's hard. It's hard. And I don't begrudge kids who want to, skip school and go to the league to take care of their families and chase their dreams. Every situation is different. I maintain that even when I was back in college 20 years ago. It's the NBA is about, can you play? Can you play? This is not the YMCA. This is not CYO ball where everyone gets a chance and everyone gets a shot. The best play, and that's the reality of it. If you're good enough and can help a team win, you're going to have a spot. And if you can't, come sit over here and watch like the rest of us. And that's what competition's about.
But Shane, my question to you with that is it fair for an NBA coach to not only try to compete for a championship and also try to keep their job to try and win games, but to also not have to teach the game to these 18, 19-year-old kids who are coming into the league? Because look, the last senior that was drafted, Bill's tired of this stat for me, but it's true. The last senior that was taken in the top 5 of the NBA draft was in 2006. Mm-hmm. So it's over 14 years. So from a coaching perspective, he's now you're adding on to his job of trying to develop a player while he's trying to compete for a championship. And it's sort of like a very tough balance at that point. I wanted to get your take on that.
They're not mutually exclusive. Look, we have the best in the biz. Eric Spoelstra, who does both. All right. You talk about the players on our roster, a Derek Jones, a Duncan Robinson, who is one of the greatest shooters in the league right now. The players on our roster that we develop, as second rounders. Coach Spoelstra, our scouting staff, has done an amazing job of finding young players, and we're in the playoffs. And so I don't believe in the argument of just because you're going for a championship doesn't mean you can develop young players. And so I'm biased because I think Spo's, that's one of his greatest strengths. So you can do both.
Well, I think, and Spoelstra doesn't get the credit too, because if you look at what people got a little poo-poo on him because he had LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, but then when all those guys were gone, he's still here winning 41 games, missing the playoffs by an inch, making the playoffs as a lower seed. Spoelstra's coaching ability has never been in question. I think he has proven time and time again he is an unbelievable coach. I was just saying it more of a general thing of, in this situation, like you said, the culture's changed. So I guess maybe there's a piece of me that's still holding back in the old culture. Again, I grew up through the 90s with the Nets. So, again, I didn't have a lot to cheer for growing up as a Net fan. But, working with the Nets and being around Jason Kidd for as long as I was, and being around the league during the 2000s, I just felt it was hard to accept, I guess, a culture change. Like you said, the talented players more versatile players, where I'm still the traditional, I want my center in the post, I don't want him by the 3-point line type of mentality. You know what I mean? That's my, so I wasn't trying to belittle, or tear down the job of the coaches, what they're doing now. I'm just saying is it right that they're getting an extra sort of, I guess, job to it? You know what I mean?
A little secret about the NBA.
Yeah.
It's really hard to win games. Really hard. If it were easy, everyone would do it. And there's a reason why.
And
that are the best managed, that have great communication with their staffs, great player development, great talent evaluators, why they're in the playoffs every single year. And so it's no different than going to Wall Street, looking at the NASDAQ 500. Why are the companies worth, the billions they are? Because they're well managed, because they produce, because they evaluate and evolve. And so the formula is the exact same for sports.
And that's why I'm behind the microphone and everybody else is doing what they're doing.
Well, that's a conversation I've had with coaches and general managers. You look across the league and there are some teams that are just never good. And they're teams that have a lot of coaching turnover, a lot of front office turnover. They're teams that draft, you just shake your head and scratch your head at the draft. They make crazy picks early. They're just, as you said, mismanaged. And I think the teams that, growing up, it was just Rockets. That was it. And Blazers, because my other family's in Portland. My grandmother was a diehard. If a Blazers game was on the radio, because nothing was televised, nothing else happened that night. You were going to sit and listen to the Blazers, Kiki Vandeweghe and Fat Lever and, all these Michael Thompson. But that culture has to be what comes first. And if you don't have the culture, nothing else, no X's and O's. And what I've heard repeatedly from like Popovich and David Moore is a good friend of mine, built the Pacers to where Paul George, they should have been in the finals. And, now with the Utah Jazz, the teams that get that are always good. Maybe not, you're going to win the championship every year, but these are teams that don't miss the playoffs. These are teams that have great coaching. These are teams that have players that evolve. And that communication part that you mentioned, I think there are just a lot of people that don't do that very well.
Well, again, it's hard. It's funny how in life the people who are most successful are the most self-aware. They grade themselves more harshly than maybe the outside world. They communicate clearly, and they work hard. And look, our league is a great league, and then there's a tremendous amount of talent in our front offices and in our benches. But what you can't discount is also luck. Sometimes your fortunes come down to the bounce of a ping pong ball, and if you're the Boston Celtics, they're still shaking their head. They should have got Tim Duncan, by the odds many moons ago. But instead, San Antonio goes on to, one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history. So you can do all the right things, and the ping pong ball bounces the wrong way. Oh well. It's just like it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to win in this league. It's hard to win one game. And if fans were able to see the preparation that goes into winning a single game in the NBA, from the advanced scouting to the planning of the practice the day before, to the shoot-around practice, to all the treatments and the ice bags and the stretching and the warm-ups and the shooting and the game planning, the adjustments, to win one game, to win one stinking game. It's an amazing energy outlay. And that's what you appreciate about being in the league. It's hard to win. It's hard to win one game. And you can't short the process at all. Because if you do, you cheat the game, you're not going to make it.
Shane, can you talk a little bit about your foundation and some of the different things you guys are doing with that, especially during this tough time?
Yeah, well, we're very proud. My wife and I, Heidi, started the Battier Take Charge Foundation. Little play on words. You know, some people have known me more for taking charges in my career, but look, I know how blessed I was growing up to have basketball to generate opportunity. I had the drive, I had the discipline, and I had opportunity through basketball. But there's so many kids out there who, like me, who don't have an avenue for opportunity. And so when I was coming up, I said, you know what? If I ever make it one day, it's my job to help create opportunities for kids just like me. And we think that the best way to do that is through a college education. So Battier Take Charge Foundation has been around for 11 years. We have a cohort of kids from Miami, Houston, and Detroit, where my wife and I are from. And over the last 10 years, given away $1.5 million in college scholarships. And more than 50 kids have come through our program in some form or fashion. And we are just trying to identify leaders and provide a shining example to kids in our at-risk communities that, you know what, if you work hard enough and you are disciplined and you go after it, yeah, you can make your dreams come true. And you know, that lesson is so pertinent now with Black Lives Matter. And so we're super proud to be part of the ride of some amazing young leaders in our world. And so if you go to takecharge.org, you can read about what we do, the programs that we do. We have a great program tonight. Actually, we just that's why I'm late for this podcast. But you know, this is all about, you know, helping our world be better. You know, whether you have a love for the environment or for kids or for education. You know, it's all of our duty to give back and give our time, give our money, give our energy to leave this world better than we found it.
Can you talk about also some of the different events you guys did?
I mean, I look at. I was just going to say I was just going to say that I work with the same population of kids in my teaching career. I teach college journalism, but that's kind of a side thing. I work with the kids that have behavior problems, and they all come from just ungodly home environments. And what they need is someone to show them a different way. Like, that doesn't have to be that way. To be, and like you, sometimes just having an adult male in the life of a young man who hasn't had a positive role model can make. I mean, not all of them. Certainly, you lose a lot of them. But I've had some young men that I've worked with that are just incredible what they're doing. You know, taking care of elderly mothers and taking care of families, but they're working and productive. And these are kids that probably were headed to jail or death. You know, premature death. And I just love that you're doing that, because it's something that is desperately needed in everywhere. I think not just America, not just Dallas and Memphis and Detroit. But I think it's something, there's a void that has to be filled, and I applaud you for filling it.
Well, I appreciate that. Like I said, I've been blessed and given amazing opportunity. And what we find is, look, you know, yes, there's a resource gap, you know, there's an infrastructure gap, but maybe as important is an inspiration gap. And we need role models. Our world needs heroes. And you can't, you know, you guys have never been, you know, media moguls if you do not see someone say, you know what, I want to be like that guy or that lady. And we all need inspiration. And so that's our aim, is to show that I don't care where you're from, what zip code you're born into, who your parents were, you know, you can do it because others have. And it's not easy. Again, if it were easy, everyone would do it. But if you're willing to
yep.
put in the time, the sacrifice, and stay the course, you know, you can do whatever you want in this world. And so that's our main message to young people everywhere.
Shane, can you let everybody know where
they can find? One of the things I say is, you don't have, if you fail at something, you don't have to explain it to me. I was just going to say, you don't have to explain to me why you failed. A lot of people fail. But why would you want to? It's so much better to succeed. Let's give you some tools instead of just creating a statistic.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Yep.
Well, Randy,
Good stuff,
if you go
Shane.
to,
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
well, thank you. If you go to takechargefoundation.org, you can read all about it, read all about our kids. And, our big fundraiser is Battioke, which is celebrity karaoke. And we've had some big names: LeBron, D. Wade, Chris Bosh, Luis Scola probably has the greatest Battioke performance. Bonnie Tyler's total eclipse of the heart. I can't get that image out of my mind. We a lot of money to help some amazing kids. So usually my teammates and the celebrities that get up there and sing know it's for a great cause to help a lot of deserving kids. So it's easy to get up there and embarrass themselves. But no one embarrasses themselves more than I do. So I always go first and set the bar super low so everyone feels really good about what they have to offer.
So you're saying the Luis Scola, pretty much you can't get the image out of your head even if you try to forget it.
The flowing locks, him struggling through Bonnie Tyler's total eclipse of the heart. Just nothing will be the same.
Hey, Shane, thank you for giving us some time today. I know you're busy. You have a lot of things going on. I'm going to ask you just to hang out so we sit for 1 second so we say goodbye to everybody, because this has been the Hardwood Huddle with our Star Wars / Supreme Leader, Mr. Bill Ingram, as always. And, of course, me with overbacksportspage.com from the swamps of Jersey. And, again, Shane Battier, a class act always. Thank you so much for giving us some time. I know it's been a very busy time, especially with the heat and everything else and all these different things you have going on. We really appreciate you giving us some time today.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. You guys stay safe.
You too. Thanks. Hold on 1 second.
Thanks, Shane.
You got it.